Yeah, that title definitely catches your attention, doesn't it? An anime about Karl Marx officially sanctioned by the Chinese government. Just saying that sentence is a bit strange, so much so that when it was originally announced, most people in the West just saw the concept, laughed, and then went about their day. As such, most people here haven't really seen it or actually looked further into it aside from just that, the concept. Was it a hidden gem, or was it as bad as people thought it would? Either way, content. First, general plot synopsis. The Leader is a mix of 2D and 3D animation telling basically the story of the life of Karl Marx, primarily revolving around three things: his relationship with Jenny, his friendship with Engels, and his political awakening. It was made to celebrate Marx's 200th birthday alongside the talk show Marx Got It Right, as a way to make Karl Marx and his teachings a lot more interesting. You know, sort of like my videos. Rather than just doing a boring lecture about the political teachings, you can have a visual medium to keep your attention. The Leader was especially made to target a specific group of people, Chinese millennials and Zoomers, who are not as into Marxism as the older generations who grew up under leaders who more than likely kind of forced the ideology onto you. But that doesn't necessarily work in the modern day. Basically, whatever the dominant political ideology is, the young kids are going to be against it, or at least opposed to it just for the sake of being cool. So the Chinese government, in turn, decided to try and make Marx look cool. Now, just saying that will make a lot of people in the West go, "Aha! See? It is propaganda!" To which I respond, no duh. But it's no different than any of those dramatized series about US figures that air over here. It shows a heavily idealized and not entirely historically accurate version of the figure's life, as a way to make the show more interesting. Except one slight difference is that the Leader actually kind of shows you that it's not entirely going to be historically accurate, given the fact that it's an animation. Which do you think should be more historically accurate? This or this? And besides, to my recollection, there's not really a lot of historical inaccuracies in The Leader. I mean, sure, they may add like scenes that might not have technically happened, like how there's one episode where Engels meets Betty, a 10-year-old girl who is a factory worker, and given the fact that he himself is a factory owner, he sees a lot more of the flaws of his job and decides to quit and join up with Marx even harder. Or basically all of the interactions with young Tom. But the fact that these two people don't exist doesn't matter. They're not actually supposed to represent real people. They're supposed to be personifications of major issues happening around the time: child labor and rampant poverty. They merely exist to simplify the story and move it forward. Another way the story's been simplified? Marx, Engels, and Jenny. Now, as much as the lead up to the series had the show's creators kept saying that they didn't want to make Marx look like a legendary god, and instead treat him as an ordinary person, they really did not do that. Marx, Engels, and Jenny are perfect saints. No matter if Marx and his family is starving, he has to give his coat to someone else. When Engels sees a 10-year-old factory worker, he can't just try to reform the factory to make it better. He just decides, I can't work in the system anymore, I quit. And of course, the relationship between the three protagonists is heavily idealized as well. Marx and Jenny have the perfect, loving relationship, and the same goes for Marx and Engels. And when I mean the same, I mean the same. There were a couple of times in the show where I was sitting down and saying, wait, Marx is supposed to be into Jenny, right? And I'm not the only person who had this interpretation. A lot of people who watched the show thought that there was like some hidden homoerotic context between Marx and Engels, so much so that it inspired a lot of interesting fan art. Now, on to a more specific criticism. The show is really wordy. Like, there will be times where the plot will basically stop. Like, everything will be basically like, stop. And then they'll go on this huge rant about Marxism. Now, to shift this back to praise, I actually didn't see this at first. You see, because it actually fit well. Marx is a philosopher, so it makes sense for him to go on some philosophical rants. But as soon as it's pointed out to you, you basically can't unsee it. You basically go, Oh yeah, this is a lefty Tumblr comic. Also, I had no segue for this, but I guess I'll just say it. The 3D models they use in the show are kind of atrocious. My guess is that they did 3D models because it's cheaper, but going in, I thought it would be a primarily 2D animation. And if they had done that instead and only stuck to 3D models for the intro, it would have worked, because in the intro it actually works really well. But in the actual show itself, it does not. Overall, all the hate that the show got going in was extremely overblown. Now, it's not like this is the greatest anime ever putting Japan to shame, but for what it is, it's alright. If you're into history, historical fiction, philosophy, Marx, communism, leftism, socialism, etc., you'll come out thinking it's good. If not, skip it. But I would recommend, if you're going to go on this long rant about like, the Chinese government made a Marx anime, this sucks, LOL, you should probably watch it before you type that comment out. A link will be in the description to watch the whole series, subtitled of course. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check out my articles in the Independent Political Report, or consider supporting me on Patreon.